The king of Hollywood's hidden heirs. Everyone knows Clark Gable. The rugged jawline, the confident smirk, the voice that delivered the most famous line in cinema history, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." For decades, he was called the King of Hollywood. He ruled the silver screen through the 1930s and 40s, playing the ultimate leading man in over 60 films. From Mutiny on the Bounty to It Happened One Night, a role that won him an Academy Award, Gable embodied masculinity, charm, and danger. He was the man every woman dreamed of, and the man every man wanted to be. But behind the flashbulbs and champagne flutes, Gable lived a life riddled with tragedy, scandal, and contradiction. He was married 5 times. He buried lovers. He drank heavily. He was adored by millions, but privately, he was restless, lonely, and haunted. And perhaps his greatest secret wasn't a film role or an affair, but his children. Few people realize that Clark Gable fathered 2 children. The first, a daughter hidden away in plain sight, raised in silence to protect reputations and careers. She lived her entire childhood without knowing the truth, only to discover the weight of her parentage as an adult. A woman who spent her life asking the question, "Why didn't he ever claim me?" The second, a son born after Gable's sudden death, a boy who would never know his father, but who inherited a name so heavy it nearly crushed him. A name that opened doors in Hollywood, yet closed others. A name that meant expectation, temptation, and too often, disaster. The story of Clark Gable's children is not the glamorous fairy tale you might expect from Hollywood's golden age. Instead, it is a story of secrecy, survival, and scandal. Imagine growing up in a world where your very existence is considered a threat to the greatest movie star alive. Imagine being told that the man on every magazine cover, the one everyone loves, will never call you his own. Imagine carrying the most legendary last name in cinema history and realizing it's a burden instead of a gift. Judy Lewis and John Clark Gable. 2 children, 2 lives, both forever trapped in the shadow of a man who belonged not to them, but to the world. What really happened to them?
To understand the hidden struggles of Clark Gable's children, you first have to understand the storm of fame, heartbreak, and controversy that surrounded the man himself. Clark Gable wasn't just a movie star, he was the movie star. By the mid-1930s, he had become MGM's crown jewel, a box office guarantee, and the embodiment of the golden age of Hollywood. His every move was trailed by photographers, his affairs became gossip column fodder, and yet, through all his success, Gable's life was punctuated by loss and contradiction. He married 5 times, but his true love was actress Carole Lombard. Their romance was the stuff of tabloid legend, witty, glamorous, and passionate. When Lombard was killed in a plane crash in 1942, returning from a war bond tour, Gable was devastated. He enlisted in the U.S. Air Forces soon after, flying combat missions in World War II. The public saw a grieving widower turned war hero, but his children, even decades later, would only feel the absence of a man who seemed larger than life, yet tragically unreachable. And then, there was the scandal. In 1935, while still married to another woman, Gable had a brief affair with actress Loretta Young. 9 months later, Young vanished from Hollywood for a vacation and returned with a baby girl, Judy. At the time, pregnancy out of wedlock was considered career-ending, so Loretta concocted a cover story. She pretended Judy was adopted, hiding her true parentage for decades. Hollywood insiders whispered, but no one dared speak aloud. Clark Gable had a secret child. The secrecy surrounding Judy Lewis's birth set the tone for her entire life. Raised in the shadow of Hollywood's lies, she would always feel the sting of being unwanted, her father refusing to acknowledge her publicly, her mother refusing to admit the truth. Imagine being told to smile for the cameras when your very identity was a scandal to be erased. Years later, in 1960, tragedy struck again. Clark Gable collapsed from a heart attack on his California ranch. 10 days later, he was gone. His fifth wife, Kay Williams, was pregnant at the time. Just months after his death, she gave birth to a son, John Clark Gable. The world celebrated the heir of the King of Hollywood, but the child himself would grow up with a ghost for a father. The contrast between Judy and John was striking. Judy was erased, denied, and hidden. John was elevated, photographed, and paraded as the prince of a Hollywood dynasty. But in truth, both inherited something far more complicated than fame. They inherited expectation, scandal, and the crushing weight of living up to a man who belonged more to cinema than to family. Because behind the legend of Clark Gable were the untold lives of his children, and their stories reveal the price of Hollywood's golden myth.
Number 2. Judy Lewis, born Judith Young on November 6, 1935, in Los Angeles, California, under a shroud of secrecy. From the moment she entered the world, Judy's life was a cover-up. Her mother, actress Loretta Young, had vanished from Hollywood at the height of her fame, telling reporters she was taking a break for her health. When she returned, she carried a newborn in her arms and insisted that the baby was adopted. Few dared to question her. In an era where unwed motherhood could end a career, this fabrication was considered safer than the truth, that the father was none other than Clark Gable, the King of Hollywood himself. Judy grew up in Loretta's glamorous household, but never felt like she belonged. She remembered being the child who didn't look quite like anyone else, taller, broader, with her father's unmistakable features. Schoolmates whispered that she was different. Strangers asked why she had such large ears, so strikingly similar to Gable's. At age 7, her mother even arranged for Judy to undergo painful surgery to pin them back, attempting to erase the resemblance. But the whispers never stopped. For years, Judy had no explanation. At home, the subject of her father was avoided, and Loretta refused to answer questions. Judy grew into a sensitive, intelligent girl, but with a growing sense that something was terribly wrong, that she was living someone else's story. The turning point came as a teenager. During a heated argument with her boyfriend, he sneered at her. "You know who your father really is, don't you? Everybody knows." And with those words, Judy's carefully constructed world began to collapse. She confronted her mother, but Loretta remained evasive, unwilling to admit the truth. Hollywood insiders knew, the neighbors knew, but Judy, the one person who most deserved answers, was left in the dark. For decades, Judy lived in the painful half-light of denial. She became an actress herself, appearing on television shows like General Hospital and The Secret Storm. Yet her career was always overshadowed by the question of her identity. Privately, she longed for acknowledgement. She even met Clark Gable once as a child, but he never revealed who he was to her. To him, she was just Loretta's little girl. The truth finally surfaced in 1994 when Judy published her memoir, Uncommon Knowledge. In it, she laid bare the secret Hollywood had kept for nearly 60 years. For the first time, she confirmed what had always been whispered, that she was the hidden daughter of Clark Gable and Loretta Young. The book sent shockwaves through the industry. Fans who had adored Gable were forced to confront a different side of him, the man who refused to claim his own daughter. Critics accused Loretta Young of deception,
while Judy became a reluctant spokesperson for the forgotten children of Hollywood scandal. But despite the revelations, Judy never received the validation she longed for. Loretta Young, even in her later years, refused to openly admit to truth. And Clark Gable had long since died, leaving Judy to wrestle with the silence of a father who would never say her name. She became a psychotherapist, channeling her pain into helping others. She built a family of her own, determined to give her daughter the unconditional love she had never felt. But the wound of her parentage remained, an absence that no career, no book, no therapy could fully erase. In 2011, Judy Lewis passed away from cancer at the age of 76. She left behind a legacy not of scandal, but of survival. Proof that even a child denied could find her own voice. And yet, one haunting question lingers. If Clark Gable is remembered as the king of Hollywood, what does that make the daughter he never crowned?
Number 1. John Clark Gable, born on March 20th, 1961, in Los Angeles, California, into both privilege and tragedy. He entered the world 4 months after his father's death, never once seeing the man whose name would define his life. From the beginning, John's existence was framed as an inheritance. He wasn't just a baby, he was the son of Clark Gable. The newspapers declared him the heir to the King of Hollywood, a living link to the Golden Age. His mother, Kay Williams, dressed him in little suits for photo shoots, eager to present him as the crown prince of a dynasty. But behind the cameras, John grew up with a ghost. His father was a poster on the wall, a voice on the television, a legend everyone claimed to know, but he was never there. As a boy, John was restless, headstrong, and resistant to the idea that he should follow in his father's footsteps. Hollywood expected him to act, to smile, to become the next Clark Gable. But John rebelled. He wanted to be his own man, and he found escape not on the stage, but on the racetrack. Cars became his obsession, fast, dangerous, unforgiving. He pursued a career as a race car driver, hurtling himself into the adrenaline-soaked world of motorsports, far away from the legacy of Rhett Butler. But even on the racetrack, the shadow of Clark Gable loomed. The press didn't write about John Clark Gable the racer. They wrote about Clark Gable's son. He was introduced at events as the heir to Gone with the Wind. Fame followed him like a curse, one he could never outdrive. Hollywood eventually pulled him back in. In the 1990s, John dabbled in acting, appearing in low-budget films like Bad Jim and Aliens from Uranus. But the roles were forgettable, and the comparisons to his father were inevitable. He lacked his father's charisma, critics said. He was trying too hard to embody a myth that no man could fill. Then came the scandals. In 1986, John was arrested for brandishing a shotgun during a road rage incident. In 1995, he faced spousal abuse charges, accused of beating his wife, Alexandra Remington. The tabloids devoured the story, painting him as a violent, troubled heir, a fallen prince. Years later, he was arrested again on DUI charges. Each headline chipped away at the carefully constructed image of Hollywood royalty, exposing instead a man spiraling under the weight of expectations he could never meet. Tragedy struck again in 2019, when John's son, Clark James Gable, known as Clark Gable III, died suddenly at just 30 years old from an accidental overdose. The younger Gable had been the host of the reality show Cheaters, and like his father, he struggled with the pressures of living up to the Gable name.
For John, losing his only son was a devastating echo of his own lifelong struggle with identity and legacy. Today, John Clark Gable lives mostly outside the public eye. He has remarried, raised children, and retreated from the world of Hollywood that never truly welcomed him. Occasionally, his name surfaces in connection with estate disputes or arrests, but the once celebrated heir to the King of Hollywood has largely vanished into obscurity. John's story is not one of triumph, but of survival under impossible weight. He was born into a myth, and myths leave little room for the humanity of those who inherit them. To the world, he was supposed to be Clark Gable reborn, but to John, that name was both a crown and a curse. And as he grows older, one question remains. Did carrying the Gable name ever give him a life of his own, or did it take one away?
The price of carrying a legendary name. The lives of Judy Lewis and John Clark Gable could not have been more different, and yet they were bound by the same unshakable shadow. Judy, the hidden daughter, was denied acknowledgement, her existence swept under the rug of Hollywood morality. She spent her life searching for answers, for truth, for the father who never spoke her name aloud. Her wound was silence, the silence of secrecy, of shame, of denial. John, the heir born after death, was given too much acknowledgement, thrust into the role of a legacy he never asked for. His life was not silence, but noise. Headlines, police reports, endless comparisons to a man he could never match. His burden was visibility, always being watched, always being judged, never being allowed to simply be. 2 children, one erased, one paraded, both scarred. The contrast reveals the brutal paradox of Hollywood's golden mythology. To the public, Clark Gable was a king. To his children, he was either absent or unreachable. The studios protected his image, the press adored his charisma, but the truth of his private life left deep fractures that his children would carry for decades. And yet, their stories are not only about loss. Judy Lewis transformed her pain into empathy, building a career in psychotherapy, giving others the healing she longed for herself. John Clark Gable, though bruised by scandal, built his own identity in speed, racing, and survival, proving that even the most fragile crown can still be worn. Behind every legendary name are lives the world was never meant to see. And so we are left with a haunting question. If you carried a name as heavy as Gable, would you keep it or bury it forever?